there's something strange. Somewhere right now, someone who couldn't care less about football, doesn't follow a team, can't name 5 players, is glued to a screen anyway because their national team is playing, surrounded by family who feel exactly the same way. This is a sport that turns one player into a name known on every continent, Messi, Ronaldo, recognized by people who've never watched a full match. It turns some fans into hooligans who riot over a result. It turns others into people who adopt a foreign club as part of their identity. And it moves hundreds of millions of dollars for the rights to one player's signature. Something that grips the whole planet this hard has to have been designed on purpose by someone. Except historians can't agree on who invented it, and people were being arrested for playing football 500 years before it was supposedly invented. So who actually invented this game? Answer that, we're going to travel through civilizations that never knew about each other and end up in a London tavern where a small group of men spent weeks arguing over the rules for the entire planet. If you asked most people when football was invented, you'd get roughly the same answer. England, 1863. Clean, simple. One country, one moment. Except, even that recent, well-documented story isn't as settled as it sounds. Some historians point to Scotland instead. One leading Scottish football historian argues that organized, ball-kicking games were being played there for hundreds of years before the English rules even existed. There's even an archaeological find, what looks like a 17th century football pitch that seems to back it up. Other historians push back. They argue that whatever the Scots were playing might not actually connect to the game we watch today at all. Notice what just happened. We're only talking about the last few hundred years, and experts already disagree. So here's the real pivot point. If the official rules only go back to 1863, why do we have royal decrees from the 1300s, 500 years earlier, banning football? Kings don't usually outlaw something that doesn't exist yet, which means the story doesn't start in a London meeting room at all. It starts much, much earlier than anyone assumes. Let's go back further than most people would ever guess. Not centuries, millennia. Start in China during the Warring States period, more than 2,000 years ago. Soldiers there played a game called kuju, literally kickball. It wasn't entertainment, it was military training, a way to build the footwork, agility, and leg strength an army needed. It was organized enough and documented well enough that FIFA officially recognized it in 2004 as the earliest known form of a kicking game anywhere in history. Now cross an entire ocean to Mesoamerica. The Olmec and later the Maya and the Aztec were playing a ball game of their own. This one had nothing to do with military drills. This one was ritual, sacred even. Played with a solid rubber ball heavy enough to break bones on massive stone courts, sometimes in front of a king. And in some documented cases, the outcome wasn't just about pride. It could decide who lived and who didn't. Now go to ancient Greece, where a game called a.k.a. had 2 teams trying to force each other backward across a line. Full contact, hands allowed, genuinely violent. Here's the part that should stop you for a second. The soldiers training in China, the priests and kings running rituals in Mesoamerica, and the Greeks who first played a.k.a. never had any contact with each other. There was no shared idea traveling between continents. 3 separate times, completely independently, humans arrived at the same basic concept. Put 2 teams on a field, give them a ball, and let them compete for it. It's only later that the Romans borrowed the Greek version, renamed it harpastum, and made it rougher. That one's not an independent invention, just a very violent sequel. This wasn't one invention spreading around the world. It was the same idea, invented at least 3 separate times by people who had no way of knowing anyone else had already thought of it. Now fast forward to medieval England, where that same basic instinct showed up again, this time as something closer to a small-scale riot. It was called mob football, and the name is accurate. Entire villages would play against each other, no limit on players, minimal rules, and one inflated pig's bladder as the ball. The match often meant dragging that bladder by any means necessary toward a marker at the opposite end of town. People got hurt. Some died. Kings hated it. Starting in 1314, England passed law after law trying to ban football, more than 30 separate bans across roughly 350 years. It wasn't really about the violence, or at least not only that. These matches pulled young men away from archery practice, training the crown needed for war. They also mixed social classes together in a way that made the authorities nervous. A crowd like that, in a fragile political moment, was a spark waiting for a reason. And every single ban failed. For 3.5 centuries, the state tried to kill this game, and the game simply refused to die. Which leaves us with an obvious problem. If nobody could agree on the rules, and the government couldn't even stop people from playing, how did this ever become one single standardized sport? The same sport the entire world follows today. By the 1800s, that problem hadn't gone away. It had just moved into England's elite schools. Eton, Harrow, Rugby, and several others were each playing their own version of football, and the versions didn't match. Some allowed you to carry the ball in your hands. Some allowed hacking, legally kicking an opponent in the shins to get the ball away from them. That meant when students from different schools tried to play each other, they couldn't. They weren't playing the same game. So in 1863, a committee at Cambridge finalized a shared set of rules. Representatives from several London football clubs started meeting at the Freemasons' Tavern to found an organization that could enforce one version of the game for everyone. They called it the Football Association. It took them 6 meetings and about 6 weeks to actually agree on anything. Here's the moment that mattered most. At their final meeting on the 8th of December, the clubs voted on whether to keep hacking and ball carrying as part of the game. The vote came down 13-4. Both were out. One club had fought harder than anyone to keep them, Blackheath. Their representative, Francis Mall Campbell, argued that removing hacking would do away with all the courage and pluck of the game. He lost. Blackheath walked out of the Football Association that same day. Clubs that agreed with them kept playing their version, the one where you could still carry the ball and kick a shin or two. That version became rugby. Which means modern football wasn't invented in 1863 at all. It was edited, one contested vote at a time. A small group of Victorian men spent 6 weeks arguing over a pile of old, chaotic, centuries-old habits, and on one December evening, simply decided which ones to keep and which ones to cut.
You're gonna make sweet women laugh and cry.
So who invented football? Nobody did. Not in the way you'd invent a phone or a car. It was invented independently, again and again, by people who never knew about each other. Soldiers in China training for war. Priests in Mesoamerica performing a sacred ritual. Greeks testing each other's strength on a field. English villagers who just liked chasing a ball through the mud. The only thing that happened in 1863 is that one version of that very old, very human impulse finally got written down, in a form the rest of the world eventually adopted. So the next time football is on, and a room full of people who don't even like the sport are glued to the screen anyway, remember what you're actually looking at. Not a 160-year-old English invention, a 3,000-year-old human habit discovered independently by people who never compared notes, that just happened to get its final edit after weeks of argument in one small London tavern. Football didn't have one inventor. It had thousands of them, and they never got the chance to meet.